What's your background?
My background in general?
Your background shot.
Oh, my background. I thought you were asking
bookcases.
What do I have in the background? I've got some books pretending that I'm a well-read human, and then a calendar of J.M.W. Turner calendar. Right. What's in your background?
I have, by sheer chance, I've got bookcases. But one side of my head is a picture of Marx, Engels, Stalin, and Mao that I picked up in Shanghai. Sort of a red embroidered image, and the other side is, I think, the vocabulary of psychoanalysis and critical dictionary of Marxism. So I'm being very authentic and
right.
Old-fashioned left-wing, yes. That's my background.
Not exactly the Getty Museum there for you.
Not really, no. Do you know what we mentioned? Are we meant to just talk then? Is that that's the idea?
Yeah, I think that we just start chatting, and maybe that's the segue. I have a bunch of questions. As you know, I'm really interested in your work, and we share an editor in Jeff Alexander, and I love the book of Dead Philosophers, and I love on humor, and extremely interested in reading. I forget the title of the one.
Very Little, Almost Nothing.
Yeah, it sounds like almost there's a weird trio of books here that are all sort of dealing with emptiness and figuring out solutions or non-solutions to them. But anyway, I was wondering, just as a starting point, it's kind of a boring question, but I wonder how writing the book in L.A. affected the book for you.
Oh, L.A. Well, it had a profound and disturbing effect, really. I was there for 9 months, and everybody said it takes 2 years to know the city. I decided I wasn't going to be there for long enough, so I didn't even bother to try.
Right.
So I went into this sort of strange existence of wearing sports clothes most hours of the days, and wearing flip flops, sunglasses, and a hat, and put on huge amounts of weight because I was just eating Mexican food at the Getty Museum, and I was driving I had this the compulsory Volkswagen Passat, the sort of silver German car that you meant to drive in that part of LA.
Sure.
And I fell into a sort of nihilistic stupor, which it took me a long time to recover from. It was very, very old, actually.
Right.
I decided I was just going to watch movies, and I was living on Sunset Boulevard, so I started with Sunset Boulevard, and then went through a lot of film noir. I think I got the idea from Mike Davis's book on City of Corpse.
Sure. That's a great book.
As it were, film noir is the way into LA. So I just decided to focus on film noir, and filled my evenings eating salads from the local deli and watching film noir. It was a very, very peculiar year, and I began to feel nothing as well. That was the strange thing. I began to just, after a period of time, there was no affect. I slept perfectly. I was sort of in a state of bovine contentedness without any sort of emotions at all.
So I was thinking about it in relationship to Cheever. I don't know if you know Cheever's posthumously published journals, which is just an incredibly great book. But he talks at length about how he often feels exactly what you feel when he visited L.A., and that how often he would flirt with suicide there in a way that he rarely did. And I don't know. I'm trying to think of how I'd be hard pressed to say exactly how it affects your book, but the book gets to emptiness in ways I really admire. So many of the writers I so much love, whether it's Pascal or Schwann or Schopenhauer, Nietzsche, they really get scarily close to the emptiness that's at the core of existence. And I think that your book, both On Laughter and Book of Dead Philosophers, just stare at the sun without blinking, and I really love that. And I thought,
well, thank you very much.
I think the LA Sun probably contributed to that somehow.
And the Mexican food too, maybe, I don't know. There's a sense in which it's complicated in the way in which it left me feeling very, very little. I just stopped really feeling anything strongly, and you really got the sense in which, you're walking around. I was walking around supermarkets late at night, buying cereal and things like that,
right?
And you felt like you're living scene to the Big Lebowski.
Right.
It was that strange, nihilistic drift, but it wasn't it wasn't despair. It was just a sort of tranquil emptiness. I just sort of drifted with it.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, that's the thing that I hope. I mean, that's the thing is, I found your book oddly giddy, oddly joyful, oddly life-loving, and I feel like if my book, The Thing About Life, works.
Yeah.
I think the book, people who like that book sort of feel what I felt after writing that book, namely that the book, despite its apparently grim subject matter, is oddly life-loving by its ending. And I think that, your book loves life a lot. I mean, it doesn't ever lie about it, but it seems to dig the moment a lot, and I think that's what my book, The Thing About Life, tries to get at as well.
In relation to your father, obviously, is the
right.
Who's the protagonist?
There's something I was going to say. Oh yeah,
extraordinary life force.
Thanks. I mean, one thing of this line by Oscar Wilde is this line I quote. I don't know if I quoted in Thing About Life, but I quoted in this other book of mine. He says, "The only solution to the soul is the senses." I'm curious
right.
I mean, I just feel like in a way that could be the epigraph to both The Thing About Life and to the Book of Dead Philosophers. I mean, do you like that line of Wilde?
Yeah, I mean, it's very good. It's just it puts me in mind of a couple of things. I mean, firstly, firstly, it puts me in mind of a line of thought you find in Epicurus, but then you find it in Lucretius and Spinoza and a whole number of others, which is that death is nothing. Right? This idea that death is nothing, which comes out of the idea that that the everything that is sensation. Everything that is sensation, and then the absence of sensation is nothing. Right? Death is the absence of sensation. Therefore, why worry about death? Right? You're worrying about a state which you won't be aware of. So it's a non-issue.
Right.
And also the idea of life being constituted in sensation and by sensation, and that one should learn to cultivate sensations in a certain way. What you find in Epicurus, and it's a very sort of unfashionable idea, is a sort of disciplining of pleasure. I mean, Epicureanism is this sort of, what we think of as this hedonism, but it's not. Right. It's about minimizing your pleasure. So what the highest pleasure for Epicurus was a barley cake and a glass of water, and he says, give me a pot of cheese and I'll feast like a king.
Right.
And therefore the withdrawal of those pleasures will not be missed, and pain should also, and pains thereby are also minimized. So this was also the argument, interestingly, against sexual pleasure. It for Epicurus is that it induced too much pleasure, that its absence caused pain. Therefore, refrain from it. I'm not. Oscar Wilde obviously wasn't exactly capable of that.
No.
But there's a in Wilde, the line, the thing I've gone back to in Wilde a lot over the years has been this idea that you get in De Profundis, the
letter from prison,
yeah, the when he's talking about what he calls a confraternity of the faithless.
That's lovely phrase.
He says to be true, everything has to be a religion. right? And the irreligious and the faithless need their religion as much as the religious. And then he has this peculiarly sort of sensuous reading of the figure of Christ around that. But I'm amenable to that line of thought, I must say.
I mean, I think one thing that I love, there's one line, I'm sort of paraphrasing this line from Book of Dead Philosophers, in which you say something like, the only immortality that I'm aware of, which you say in a very nicely understated way, is the calm, just calmly existing in the present without either forethought or regret. I feel like that's the absolute core of the book. Yeah. And I feel like that's just really beautiful. And I just find that, I mean, in a way, that's just the essence of it. And I feel like ever since writing my book, The Thing About Life, I feel like I've gotten, I mean, without turning this into like a self-help session or something, but I feel like I've gotten better about that than I ever was before, having spent 3 or 4 years contemplating mortality and writing a book about mortality. I feel like I've gotten, in the last year or two, since finishing the book, sort of weirdly good about calmly existing in the present, knowing this is it, there is no net beneath the abyss, and just calmly existing in the present. And I'm not sure what we can say other than nod our heads and agree that we both feel this way. But, I mean, do you agree that's the core of the Book of Dead Philosophy? I mean, don't you think that's a crucial line? Yeah,
it's the idea of existence without forethought or regret. This is the, that we're slaves to the future insofar as we're always sort of salivating after the fulfillment of some future ambition, wealth, riches, or whatever, a better career or whatever, and or we're tortured by the past and the ghost of the past, and those two dimensions of time sort of divide and empty out the present, so there is no present. There is just forethought, anxious forethought and regret. And the if you like, the therapy for that is being able to inhabit the present. And you find this thought, throughout the philosophical tradition. Firstly in Epicurus, but in its most persuasive form in Spinoza, which is looking at things under the aspect of eternity, sub specie eternitatis. And once you can, or Wittgenstein will say in a strange moment in the Tractatus, the eternal life is given to those who live in the present. So in a sense that the ability to occupy the present moment in its transience, without wanting any sort of underpinning through, I don't know, some sort of guarantee, metaphysical or whatever. That's the most difficult thing to do. That's the sort of the tightrope that we hover on. And I think that I hope that gets easier. I mean, some days I'm not sure. I mean, the things that your book is about your father, and the book I was mentioning, Very Little, Almost Nothing, was about the death of my father, and in a sense it ended up, that's where I started to think about these issues. And
interesting.
That's, Freud has this remark about the death of the father was the greatest event in a man's life, and he means a man's life rather than a woman's life. And for me, that certainly was the case. That completely sort of upended everything for me, and I had to, rethink. And now, as one, also becomes a parent oneself, and then ages, and you then come to resemble physically the sort of the person that your father was. That's a very peculiar.
Right. It's funny you say that, because I was just about to say, why are we, why are we so obsessed with mortality? I mean, to me, it's just that we get it. It is the issue, as Cormac McCarthy has said. It's the issue of human life. And I wonder. I mean, I think some people are, and some people aren't. Some people have a religious consolation. Some people like my wife, say, or have no religious